What if Notch actually did all the things he always said he was going to do? I wonder how different Minecraft would be. I guess we'll never know. Come on, girl. Dragons! Huh. Oh, dragons. No, it was all a dream. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Minecraft The Journey with me, BugmanCX. I can tell you what, I slept pretty well last night. I had some pretty weird dreams about dragons and being able to fly around. Pretty weird stuff. Anyway, we're in Minecraft Beta 1.9 Pre-Release 4 in this amazing Let's Play series where we upgrade this survival world around me through all of the historical versions of Minecraft, learning all about the game as we go. At the moment, we've been exploring enchanting and all sorts of other things that were added in Beta 1.9 Pre-Release 4, but there was a lot of other work going on in the background too, because Notch and Jeb were preparing to get this game ready for its eventual release. And there's a whole new dimension and stuff that we haven't even explored yet, and today I want to try and discover what it's all about. I thought I was going to fall off the cliff there. Whoa! But before we get into any of that, I've been outside farming Enderman because I've discovered a new property of the Ender Pearl that I overlooked from Beta 1.9 Pre-Release 2, and that is the Ender Pearl's ability to do this. As you can see, when I throw the Ender Pearl, I get teleported to wherever the Ender Pearl lands, and this is a game changer. But I can't use too many of these at the moment because we need them for something else first. And that something else has to do with these, the Ender Pearl and Blaze Powder. As we know, combining an Ender Pearl with some Blaze Powder will give us an Eye of Ender. And at the moment, these can be used to repair end portal frames. But as of Beta 1.9 Pre-Release 4, they have an additional feature. If we fire one into the sky, and I'm going to do it in F5 mode, by the way, look how huge it is. I'm going to do it in F5 mode so we can see exactly what happens. If I fire it off into the sky, it heads off in that direction there, and then, that one broke. Sometimes they break, they have a chance of breaking, which is quite annoying because I only have a limited supply of them. But we can follow these and they should lead us to a stronghold. I've made my way a few hundred blocks and I want to try this again. Now, normally players would follow these to their destination, but I already happen to know that the stronghold is pretty much over there. So I feel a little bit cheaty, but that's just because of the way that the game has unraveled itself over the last few versions. These strongholds over here, or this stronghold over here, was generated in pre-release 3, I think it was, so we should be pretty safe. If the strongholds were generated in earlier versions, these Eyes of Ender can't find them because they're in the wrong locations in the world. But let's just give this another try. We're going off slightly in this direction, and hopefully this will fall down to the ground and I can catch it. I'm going to keep following it in this direction generally, and I think it should lead us all the way to that stronghold pillar. Now, so far I've wound up here, which is the location of the stronghold, and when these were generated in pre-release 3, they generated with these glass pillars. This glass pillar here goes down to the central spiral staircase, and this glass pillar here goes down to the portal room. So if I fire one of these into the sky, it's taking me to the spiral staircase, which is exactly what I would expect because that's the core coordinates of the stronghold itself. So let me just collect up that before I lose it, and let's head down. And of course, it leads us all here to these end portal frames. But where could they lead? Well, we know that these end portal frames here with these vacant squares are broken end portal frames, but thankfully the Eye of Ender can repair them. So let's do this one by one. We luckily have just enough to repair them. Normally, some of them would be repaired and some of them wouldn't, and it would be, excuse me, I was in the middle of something. Some would be repaired and some wouldn't, so it would be a bit of a gamble as to how many Eyes of Ender you needed. But once we complete the last portal here, nothing happens. Why didn't anything happen? So instead, I've located this stronghold here in a creative world so that we can have a look at what happens together. The first thing I notice here is that we have one end portal frame which is complete, so that means filling up all of the others just as we did before in our world. Now, because this was a brand new generated world, this should work. Let's pop up here and see exactly what happens. Last one. Oh, we get a portal. And this all begs the question, why didn't I get a valid portal forming in my end portal frame? And I think it has something to do with the orientation of these blocks. If we take a close look here, we can see a few things are out of order, and you wouldn't spot them unless you knew what to look for. First here, this block here is in a different orientation to the one next to it. Here you can see as I stand on top of this block here, this white pixel of the Ender Eye is in the bottom left-hand corner, and we have these two rounded things on the left and right side of the block respectively. But on this one, it's the other way around. And the only other end portal frame like this around here is this one here. And I think that that might have something to do with the fact that this end portal frame block and this end portal frame block were both in a broken state when this portal was generated in pre-release 3. But if you look more closely still, you can see a few other problems too. These Eyes of Ender, all of these pixels are in the same location in all of the eyes, and that shouldn't be. Let me take you into a creative world so we can see exactly why this is important. And it all comes down to relative block placement. In order for the game to know where to form a portal, it needs to know which direction the end portal frame block is facing. So if I place an end portal frame block down in front of me, this face here is facing the center of where the portal would form. And you can see that it's got this little pattern here at the top and the bottom. And when I place the eye inside, it all looks correct. Let's repeat that and put another eye in, and you can see that the pixel is in exactly the same place. But if I place one in the wrong direction, now this face is facing towards where the center of the portal would form, and I place the eye in, you can see that it's just not lined up properly, and therefore the game doesn't know where to place these blocks. So in order to place a valid end portal, you need to make sure that all of these end portal frames are facing towards the center of where the portal would form. So if we get rid of this and place another one here, again facing towards the center, and then fill in all of the other blocks on all of the other sides correctly, all facing towards the center. Now, when we fill in the rest of these Eye of Ender all around the edges like this, and the last one, you'll see we get a valid portal. So remember, this portal was generated in Beta 1.9 pre-release 3 before the portal frame orientation became important. But this block and this block here were considered damaged at the time, which is why they appear in a different orientation now. And that may have something to do with the fact that when the broken portal frames were placed down, they were placed down with a different orientation to make them appear different in-game. But as of pre-release 4, the orientation became important because it was necessary to be able to generate end portals. Now, if you look at these portal frame blocks closely, you can see that the little white pixel in each of these Eyes of Enders is actually facing towards me. It's in the bottom right-hand corner, so that means that each of these blocks is facing towards me. And that means that all of these end portal frame blocks are actually facing in the wrong direction, technically, except for these two. And so therefore, an end portal will never generate right here in the middle because these blocks are just not facing the center. Thankfully, because of Jeb accidentally leaving this end portal frame or this end portal item in the last version, we can create our own end portal right here just by placing these blocks down like this and ensuring we place them all correctly. We now have a working end portal. We faked it a little, but the game gave us all these blocks, so I call it legit. Before I take the plunge into this goopy portal here, we need to take a little bit of time out to talk about how the end portal got here in the first place and what's on the other side. Back when Notch and Jeb were first developing this game, there were spoilers galore. Notch and Jeb hinted at features and showed off progress all the time, meaning that by the time players got their hands on the game, there was very little about it that they didn't already expect, including dragons. But Notch's original vision for many of these features was often quite different to what we actually got in the game. So, although I already know what's beyond this portal and I know what to expect when we get there, it was just as little surprise to me now as it was to players back then, all because of spoilers. And since exploring this game's history includes looking at how the information was teased and revealed and leaked before these releases came out, I thought we should take a look back at the history of Minecraft and dragons, leading all the way up to Beta 1.9 pre-release 4. Dragons. It seems like dragons were destined to be in Minecraft. They'd always been part of Notch's imagination since the beginning, and part of it seems to come down to his fondness for dragons and his enjoyment of seeing them in other games of the time. All the way back in 2009, when Minecraft was just a few months old, Notch was already thinking about long-term plans. There might be a need for some kind of a goal. Make the most money in a month? Kill a big evil mob in the shortest time? I don't know yet. But Notch's first real mention of dragons in Minecraft came from a 2010 YouTube video that he posted called Minecraft Flight, showcasing the terrain generation. In its description, he described, "In the distant future, there will be more variations such as different terrain types, desert, swamp, snow, and settlements, goblin village, abandoned stone tower, dragon lair." Then later at MinecraftCon 2010, he hinted at dragons being added again, but didn't say much more about them. By 2011, Minecraft had moved from alpha to beta. Jeb had recently been hired as a game developer and soon began working with Notch on Minecraft. The two of them were busy working on all sorts of new features, and there was no new mention of dragons for a while. But in June 2011, during a streamed interview, Notch said that if dragons are added, they wouldn't be mountable. Notch said this was because it would be too taxing on multiplayer servers, but do we believe him? How cool would it have been to have ridden a dragon? Confronted about this again in 2011, he said,
There will be dragons, eventually, once we figure out how to do them.
So, it sounded like Notch was still thinking about adding them, one day. But the clock started to tick. The full release 1.0 version of Minecraft was planned to be announced at Minecon 2011, and the game still had no real ending. So, Notch got to work on it. The adventure update was to be the final update for Minecraft before Minecon, and with each new version that came out, you could start to see more and more features coming together, giving the player a sense that something was coming. There was the addition of strongholds in Beta 1.8, end portal rooms got added with end portals, a mysterious goop which pretty much resembled a portal, eyes of Ender that would lead you to the stronghold portal room, and of course, Notch reworking the old sky dimension. Putting all this together was surely leading to something. Rackent bar. Sorry, Notch? It had to be code for something. Either that or Notch was drunk because it was sent around midnight Swedish time. But Reddit got to work and deciphered the code using Rot13. Ender Dragon. Ender Dragon! But what is the Ender Dragon? Enderman? Ender Pearls? Eyes of Ender? End portal frames? The mysterious sky dimension? Could the Ender be a new dimension where the dragon lives? Captain Kwashi theorized that perhaps the new dimension will be called Ender and will be home to the mysterious Enderman and the deadly Ender Dragons. Notch confirmed that Captain Kwashi is 100% correct. So that's it. Confirmed. The new dimension would be called the Ender. Notch spent the rest of October working on refining the Ender Dragon, and we got a lot of insight into this process. Notch revealed a screenshot of the dragon's progress so far, and here was our first shot of the Ender Dimension with a prototype of the dragon. The dimension appears to be covered in a strange sand-like block, contains large black pillars, and of course, there's the Enderman. This was followed by a bunch of other images. The Ender Dragon was intended to be the game's main boss, but Notch had always intended to include other dragons. Here we can see a prototype dragon flying around in the main world. It has no textures yet, but the basic shape's there. But some important movements are a little bit off, including that weird upright neck shot. Now that the model was in, it was time for Notch to focus on applying textures. I am a bit afraid of texturing the dragon. It's a very big model. I am going to need unhealthy food for this. I appreciate the offers to help texture it, but it's my dragon. Go make your own dragons. Hugs Dragon. The dragon model was so huge by comparison that Notch even had to include a whole new system for handling it. I started tweaking some code. Model parts can now contain child model parts. Minecraft is almost becoming a modern game. This dragon had so many details that Notch even wrote a tool which would take a 3D box-like model and generate a flat image template ready for texturing. He shared the image of this showing different surfaces of the dragon's body in different colours. Some people got a bit confused and thought that the dragon's final texture was going to be a rainbow. Not to worry, the coloured sections were just the areas that hadn't had the base texture applied yet. Notch shared another progress update, but the model was looking a bit boxy with its squared-off shaped wings. Ikoi suggested that Notch should research how bat wings are constructed, and Notch liked that idea. After a few hours, he'd changed the model and made the wings bigger and made them make sense. Henrik pointed out that you could adjust the cuteness or nastiness a lot by adjusting where the neck attaches to the head. Lower is eviler? Low head equals evil. Notch tinkered with this idea and, holy legroom, Batman! You're right! Speaking of its look, Notch wanted to make the wings even bigger, but joked that there wasn't enough room in the texture files for it. All of this work in a single day. Notch was on a roll. Add scales, tint black and add purple eyes. Ender dragon. Tomorrow, I animate. Our first video showing the dragon animation was released on October 10th, but you can barely see anything. Let's see what we can do with it. That's better. It's only a glimpse, but she flies past along the top of the screen there. Notch was working on making the dragons more challenging in-game, which in turn created more challenges in the code. The size of the dragon was complex to work with, leading Notch to introduce the idea of multiple hitboxes. New solutions create new problems. But the complicated size also meant that the dragon's AI had difficulty maneuvering around blocks, so Notch came up with a new idea for that as well. The dragon phases through terrain and is 100% invulnerable now. Phases through terrain. What exactly does that mean? I made it vanish all blocks it hit. That was awesomely destructive, but expensive in multiplayer. Can it destroy man-made stuff? Yes, everything. Instantly. Not sure if we're keeping it. But this temporary solution was starting to sound permanent, because the next day, Notch posted a video explaining why Ender Dragons won't spawn in the main world. It shows an Ender Dragon flying around destroying all of the blocks in its path. One Redditor commented, "I like how the dragon screws up the laws of physics for the water." Notch replied, "She's from the end. She doesn't care about physics." And I for one am so glad she stays there. What's her name? Jean? In this comment, Notch had not only joked about the dragon's name, but confirmed that the dragon was indeed female. He'd also confirmed that this new dimension was not called the Ender, it was called the End. Notch was challenged over the dragon's destructive block behaviour workaround. If you ask me, Notch just couldn't be asked figuring out proper collision for the dragon. Notch replied, in length. Partly, yes. I've added the code for multiple segments for larger mobs, so each part has its own collisions and physics. It knows if you hit it in the head or left wing, and each part has individual player collisions, and so on. On a technical level, it works by letting each entity define a bunch of sub-entities if it wishes to. The entity is fully responsible for all physics and saving and loading of the sub-entities. It's working surprisingly well, and it appears to be working in multiplayer as well, although I haven't started testing the dragon in multiplayer yet. Originally, it hit walls and couldn't move through them. It awkwardly turned around and changed direction. The player can easily create walls on their own, and trying to make an AI to properly navigate arbitrary terrain before the code freeze next Tuesday isn't feasible when there's so much more we need to do. And since the dragon is going to start out as an overpowered boss enemy, I'm definitely adding less overpowered dragons for the main world after release. We don't want too many easy ways to deal with it, so we had a short design meeting and decided to make it cheat. I think it's ironic that the phasing behaviour started out as a workaround to a problem that wasn't easy to solve, but remained in the game and later became one of the Ender Dragon's most well-known and destructive behaviours. In these statements, Notch had also confirmed that less overpowered dragons were being planned for. He'd always intended to have one main dragon for the boss fight, but other dragons would be able to exist in that main world. After release, I will totally work on slightly less dangerous dragons that don't destroy terrain and can land and whatnot. They will be red. Reddit blew up. So you say you'll have dragons in the overworld eventually. Would this be after your first access to the end, like they break through the gates, or will they just be rare mobs and around from the get-go? They will be different dragons. The Ender Dragon will probably become larger, and the ones in the main world will be this size, won't go through terrain, and will be red because dragons are red. There's so much to unpack here. So, dragons in the main world would be as large as the Ender Dragon was now, just with different behaviors. But the Ender Dragon was originally planned to be even bigger? Notch ends the day with, dragons have 6 limbs. Thanks, Notch. The next day, Beta 1.9 pre-release 4 came out, but Jeb mentioned that Notch's dragon isn't available yet. That might have been technically true, but its texture and functionality were in the game code. It's just a matter of accessing it. So by applying a quick mod to give the players the ability to spawn the Ender Dragon manually, it would become possible for players to see this new dragon for the first time. There was a lot to take away from all of that. We know that this portal leads to the end dimension. We know that the end dimension is kind of unfinished at the moment. We also know that a dragon will live there in the future, but even though it's implemented in the game code now, it's not technically accessible to us. I also know that if I do visit the end in this version of the game, and no dragon spawns, which it won't because it's not programmed to spawn yet, no dragon will ever spawn in the end, ever again. But there are some ways around that, so we'll just have to work with what we've got. Since this is the first time the end dimension has been made available to us as players, I want to visit it. I really do. So we're going to take the plunge and dive into the end portal and see where it takes us. Ready for this? Let's go. Entering the end. Have a look at that. It's our first foray into the end. But we're not here to explore any of this today. We came here to check out one specific thing and one specific thing only. The dragon. But sadly, she's not here. But by using that mod to enable the Ender Dragon's code, we could summon one in. But I don't want to do that here in my vanilla world because I want to save that for when she's officially added. But we can switch to a creative world and explore anything we like. I'm now in a creative world running Beta 1.9 pre-release 4 with modified Java class files that will allow us to access the end and spawn in the Ender Dragon. If I use a diamond sword, I can right-click this and it will take me straight to the end dimension, and by using a gold sword, right-clicking it, I can spawn in an Ender Dragon. So first, let's use this and get ourselves into the end. Entering the end. Alright, we're in the end in creative mode. Obviously, no Ender Dragons in sight. But we can now use our gold sword to spawn one in, so shall we give it a try? There it is! This isn't exactly what we expected. No. Well, it seems that although Notch left the code in for the Ender Dragons, their current state means that they've also got these collision boxes activated. I guess that's because these Ender Dragons were still being developed by Notch, and he had enabled their collision boxes just for his own purposes to be able to see how they work and how big these collision boxes would be in practicality. We need to get rid of these, and fortunately there's another class files modification that we can make to the game which will just get rid of these and allow us to see the Ender Dragon in its full glory. The second class file has been added to remove the visible collision boxes, and we can now see this beautiful Ender Dragon flying around in her native home, the End Dimension. Let's see if we can get up close. She's very fast, so it's hard to keep up with her. Oh, hello! Wow! Wow! Look at that. And we can do some unusual things because we have access to these special swords here. We can use this to spawn in as many Ender Dragons as we like. So let's spawn in another one, just for fun. 2 Ender Dragons in the end. What a strange thing to see. Let's see if we can spawn in a couple more, maybe 3, 4, 5 Ender Dragons, just flying around the end casually, enjoying themselves. What an amazing sight that is. But we can do even better. Now we saw in Notch's videos that he was showcasing the Ender Dragon here, in the main world. And since we have access to this sword, why don't we have a little bit of fun with this and see what happens if we spawn in an Ender Dragon here in the main world? Oh, okay, there she goes. I wonder where she's heading. Probably to 00, the center of the world's coordinates. It looks very much like she's doing that, and once she let's catch up to her. It's so much easier to see her here in the sunshine, isn't it? You can see every detail, and that is a fine-looking dragon, if you ask me. I'm not sure if it's trying to avoid me or if it's just flying around this area randomly, but this is 00 in this world. Let's see what happens if we spawn in another one. Oh, look at that. So Notch did say that he was planning on adding dragons into the main world at a later stage, but as we know, that never actually happens. But this is what it might have looked like if we had dragons flying around in the main world, which to me looks, let's spawn in another one, to me looks pretty fascinating. Oh my goodness. That is a lot of Ender Dragons. I wonder how many I can actually get away with before the game starts lagging out completely. Look at them all. There you can see its destructive behavior as it's destroying the mountains that it flies through. Wow. Oh wow, look at that tunnel that it made. There she goes, right through the middle of the mountain. Glorious. Well, that is all we have time for in today's episode. I'm so glad you could join me for episode 150, surrounded by these dragons. What an amazing sight. And please, if you enjoyed the episode, I would love it if you could like, share, subscribe, comment, join the Discord, join Patreon, hit the super thanks button, all of those things that help my channel grow. I'm just amazed by the support, and I hope to continue to see you all enjoying this series and see the channel continue to grow. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons for supporting me. I'll see everybody in the next episode. Until then, this has been BugmanCX. You've been watching Minecraft: The Ender Dragon. The Journey. Bye-bye. I wonder what happens if we spawn one of these in the Nether. Oh, off she goes.